If you're having problems with your heater motor in a 2007 to 2013 Toyota Tundra, I've ripped all the interior out on this and done a lot of diagnosis and figured this out. If your Tundra has no air coming out, the blower motor works, but you have no air out of the part of the vent controls. You just have floor and defrost. I'm going to show you a quick video how to fix this. You'll need to remove this piece, which you can just pop loose with a trim tool or a small flathead screwdriver. Got one plug in behind here for your tow button. Disconnect that. Shifter comes off pretty easily. You just unthread it. Then you can put your foot on the brake, key in the ignition, put it in neutral. Make sure you have the parking brake set. And then this plastic will all separate from these joints all the way around the edge here. Removing the center console is pretty easy. Just get a firm flathead screwdriver or a trim removal tool and start wedging it in between here, and it'll come right out.
I did it, Daddy!
Yeah, good job. And once you get that loose, this whole thing, you can see that clip down in there. This whole thing will just pry right up out of there and pull right out. Pretty gnarly under there. And you got a few more clips to remove this shifter bezel gauge.
Okay, I'm ready to get out.
Then you've got a few more.
Dang it.
Pull on it. And the whole thing will come out pretty easily.
Daddy,
That'll allow you to lift this up out of here. And this comes out really easily. There are 4 more 10mm bolts underneath this carpet. Then the whole thing will separate when you lift up on it, and the 2 pieces will come loose. This you'll slide up off of here. It's got a tab. Pull on it, and that'll disconnect, and that gives you freedom to get this mess out. And then you'll typically find some change down here, so you can take this 50 cents and go get your wife a small Frosty or something at Wendy's and make her happy. Now that the easy part's out of the way, you'll want to make sure you have it in park. You can come under here. This whole thing is one big unit. It's one big piece together, and you'll have to drill a hole in this frame to actually get this thing out. Got a 10mm right here that helps hold this plastic. And this whole piece will just slide out of there, giving you better access to the unit. The reason you have to drill a hole in this frame here is because you have access to these screw heads down in here and these up here. But when it comes to this screw, it's back in behind this harness. You can see that back there, but it's too tight to get to. And you have to drill a hole right here, just right above that spot weld. What I've done here is I've wedged this trim tool in between the harness and that frame. And you can pop this clip out, give your harness a little bit more flex there, and then you'll come in right here is where you're going to want to drill that. And I'm using a multi-bit, and that's what it looks like when you get it drilled. Use this multi-bit so that you don't puncture all the way through, and you can size the hole out a little bit larger.
That was fun, Daddy.
And now you have access to fit your screwdriver in there. There's a fat chance of catching this when it comes out. Probably just going to have to let it fall. I'm going to take these micro fingers that expand out. See if I can reach back in here and grab it before it falls out of there.
Can we go to Grandma's house in the red truck?
Got it. Wow, what are the odds of that?
Okay, I'm done with that video. Okay, I just want
Doesn't ever happen. With this thing out of here, you can kind of tell this is like a dual plug. Fishes down and around the side of here. It's a little bit of a snake to get out, but it plugs into this flap actuator motor and this flap actuator motor. Kind of fishes around and is tied in here. With this out, you can really see where your bolts are located. You've got one up at the top, one right here, one at the bottom, and then the one that's really hard to get to right here, which is behind your frame. So once you've got this unit out, we'll take it over to a bench and see how she looks. I was thinking, okay, well maybe these gears just, something's not synced up right here. You know, this tooth looks like it's a little bit off or something. Like that gap should fit right in that groove. But I was turning this, and as I turn it, I was thinking, well, this is weird. And you can see the level of this gear is not right. So I felt to these gears, feel into this gear, it's a little bit wobbly in there, and it's setting too high. And I just gave a slight tug on it, and it came right out of there. And you can see that plastic is cracked. So this gear is broken, and whatever it controls and actuates, that is not working properly. So it's got a crack down the middle of that shaft, and it's sheared right off. Sheared right off of the flat motor assembly. 2 screws hold this flat motor in place. Get that out. We disassemble it with these clips on the sides, pry them apart. When you get this housing apart, be careful because these clips are pretty easy to snap off. I broke one leg off there, and there's 2 that go around the edge of that plug. So it's a little bit stiff, but once you pry this apart, you'll notice this is the gear that breaks. And it's got contacts on it, and that's the part that just sheared right off. So I was thinking, how could you put this back together? But actually, you'll notice it presses onto this other gear, so it's a separate shaft. There's the 2 different colors there. So new part came in, and I just got this put back together. The new flap actuator motor. You can see there it's AE0638000171PLS, in case you need it. But putting this back together, a little bit tricky. There's a gap there you can see that aligns with the gap here, but these are fixed. So what I'm going to do is plug this in, leaving it out of the vehicle. But first, to keep from this endless annoying dinging, I'm going to shove a screwdriver in here. That'll keep that quiet. And then down here, these flap actuator motors, what I'm going to do is key on. You can see they're both rotating now. And that's where you want those gears to mesh. Where it's got that little bit of a gap right there, where it's short one tooth and it stops. That's where you want to mesh those gears together when you install the motor. Now, as I turn this knob, just for reference, this is what it should look like when it is blowing through the face vent. This is what it looks like face to floor. This is what it looks like floor only. This is defrost and floor, and that is defrost only. So that's the controls for that. Filled both gears with JB Weld so that they're more solid, because they were hollow before, and that'll help beef them up a little bit so they won't shear in half ever again. I would like to make a note that this gearbox is a real pain to line up on the different tabs for your flaps, and I found it easiest to take this off and pop this other flap motor out. Take it out and line that one up first. And this just mounts to the air box in behind there. So get that lined up first. And then there's a flap up here. Make sure it's in the down position. And then you've got a couple other flaps over here. And I had to kind of finagle those a little bit to get it to press on and line up correctly. But definitely take this flap actuator motor out first, and it should line up a lot easier. If you still can't get it to line up with this bottom flap motor out, you can pull this cover off, and then with the gear out of here, you can line it up to what it looks like in behind there and then push it into place, because these things aren't adjustable once they're in place. This is kind of spiral clock gear spring here, so it doesn't want to move. So that's one way to get that in there. And this is what it looks like back over to the face selection. So it's back to working again. Turn the blower speed on here. And air is coming out of both vents, blowing really hard. So that's a quick, easy way to fix this for about an afternoon's worth of work. So hope that helps. And then all you got to do is pretty much just snap your fingers and everything goes back together. Just like that. Goes right back together.